Well, welcome to Now, Dominic Lim. My first question for you is how are you doing right now?
I'm ecstatic. I'm
Ecstatic.
I
Well,
am. I
tell me about that. What's the cause of ecstatic?
well, I'm just I'm tickled pink to meet you and to talk to you. I'm just such a big fan, not just
Oh,
of your acting work, but all the stuff that you've done with your life
thank you.
to amplify people, and it's just I'm just so happy to be here to talk to you.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And thank you. Now, I know that you wrote a book. You recently released a book
Mhm.
called Karaoke
Karaoke
Queen.
queen, that is correct.
Yes, I have my copy here. I have not yet gotten through it, but yeah, because I've just
That's
been
okay.
all over the
Oh,
place. But I am glad to have you sitting here because this seems like the kind of queer rom-com that, I needed when I was coming up looking for different types of stories to read.
yes.
Um, where did the inspiration come from with Karaoke Queen? Somehow this queen I feel like is you.
I mean, she's kind of me.
Yes.
I've done drag on and off in my life. It's always been a big important part of my life. Um, it was part of a two-book deal when I signed with my publisher. So this is my second book, and the idea of it kind of sprang from I wanted to explore sort of the politics of the gay male identity, particularly gender and femininity and masculinity. And as you are very well aware of the prioritization of masculinity in the gay male world. And it was better when we were younger. It's better now than when we were younger, but it still exists for sure. And I wanted to sort of explore that within the context of drag and how, because of all the horrible anti-drag legislation and the fear mongering about drag and how it's going to corrupt our children. And I listened to your podcast with Jinx, and you talked a little bit about that as well. But it's so I wanted to sort of explore those things about a young Filipino drag queen who basically turned their back on drag and femininity because of fear and because of trying to achieve something that he was not. So and then I put it within the context of a rom-com because it is a serious subject, but I wanted people to have some joy in that journey for him.
Yeah,
So
what was so funny was as I was reading sort of the synopsis of everything, I was like, "Well, this sounds like a movie." This sounds like a movie. Do you have plans to turn any of your stories into,
I
anything
would love
else?
to. I would love
Right?
to. I mean, if we authors had any power over that, we would all get our books made into movies. But
And it's always but it's so interesting these days, as a creator, as
mm,
someone who sort of figures out how to continue to tell your stories and tell the stories that you want to hear. Um, I think it's really interesting to get to this place now where we have to sort of produce everything. Tell me about like how difficult it was for that first book to get the first deal and to have your stories be told.
I was hesitate to say this, but I was lucky, and it's not. It's it. I hesitate to say it because it is still very difficult for people of color in the publishing world. Right? It's really hard for us to get our stories out there because we just don't exist in the numbers that we need to on the publishing side, right? There are a lot of stories that are
Mhm.
being written, stories that are being told, but there aren't enough editors who are people of color. There aren't enough agents who are people of color, right? So
And the ones
we
that are probably trying to, fit what they see as a diverse story into, how they see diversity and what that box looks like for them.
exactly, they have it's getting a little bit better now, but once a house has their one black book, that's their book. They have the one gay book. We're done. We've done our job. So, you know, and forget all the other stories. But my journey was actually very fortuitous because I have had a lot of support. I mean, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so
Mhm, mhm.
I already have a very supportive community here. I have a supportive writing community, and I was able to find an agent, and she is white. She's a white woman, but who really wanted to be a champion for my book. And the same thing when we led it at my editor and my publisher, and that imprint, which it's a romance imprint of Hachette, which is one of the big five publishers. They are very much into supporting diverse authors. I feel like they are the biggest diverse. They have the most diverse authors of any romance imprint.
Wow, that's
So
great that you could find a home,
yeah,
for that.
yeah, it was. That's. I think that's key is finding that home. And right, we don't have a lot of people of color on the inside, but we have our allies, so it's important to have
Mhm.
them. And so I've been lucky. And I've been lucky in that they've been continuing to support me now through my second book, and that they want a third. So,
That's okay, come on, that
oh,
amazing,
thank you.
congratulations. I love it when they want seconds and
And
thirds.
third,
We love that.
keep
Um,
coming back.
yeah, so talk to me about, like, growing up Filipino
Mm,
and, like, and queer, was your family accepting? Were you in an accepting environment? Because I know that sometimes I have a lot of friends that are from various parts, Filipino,
mhm.
from Thailand, from different, like, parts of Asia, countries, and some are very supportive and some are like, "Hell no."
Well, it's a very interesting thing being Filipino and being queer because, on the one hand, it is one of the most accepting countries in terms of being gay because,
Mhm.
you can walk around. I mean, it is there is a culture there that is very well known. But on the other hand, it's one of the most repressive because it is a Catholic country. It is the only
Mhm.
country besides Vatican City which
Wow.
outlaws divorce.
Mhm, mhm.
So it is all about the church there. So there's this sort of, you know, but the thing is, in my family, there's four of us kids and three of us are queer. So
Wow,
something
wow.
was happening in my mom's womb.
Somebody hit the jackpot,
Right.
absolutely.
So while she had a very hard time with it when we all started coming out, she immediately had to accept us or else lose most of her kids, really. And now she's one of our staunchest supporters. So
Now, so you talk about your siblings and
mhm,
having 2 other
that's right.
okay, so did what was the order of coming out? Like, did you come out to each other? Did you feel this safety with each other, before you all came out? Did you come out together?
I'm the oldest, so and I came out first, and I'm a couple years older
Oh,
than the
so you
rest
got
of
the
them.
hardest route of
I had
it.
the hard right.
You paved the way for the rest
I,
of them.
I did. But I wouldn't have had it. I wouldn't have had it any other way because when later they came out, I mean, they both wrote me letters and said it was because of you that I had that strength to be able to come out as well.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
amazing. How did you was it natural for you because it seems like did you study writing cuz from what I've like researched or saw with about you is that you have a degree in music.
that's right.
How did you bring cuz obviously with Karaoke Queen,
Right.
you're bringing together your love of music and telling, stories. So how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, the first actually it's even more in my first book, which is called All the Right Notes, because that book is about a
Oh, I
pianist and
love
composer.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, and it's about his second chance romance with a Hollywood actor, and he's half Japanese. So that is very much part of my first book, my musical experience, but it's also in the second book because karaoke is such a huge thing with Filipinos.
Oh, I
Most
know.
Asian countries.
Yes.
I was like at my grandma. So we went to the Philippines 2 years ago to bury my grandma's remains because we couldn't do it during COVID, right?
Oh,
So
right, right,
it
right.
took us a while to get there. And then when we did, we had a memorial service at my mother's house where she grew up in the provinces. And I remember it was 2 a.m. and they dragged out the karaoke machine to keep going. I was like, this is our
Wow.
culture. Is
You know, it was amazing when I was in when I went to Thailand back in 2018, you know, when I say when I got my butterfly wings. I you
mm,
know, the hotel that I stayed at, it was like during Christmas time too. And I just remember like the karaoke was just a big thing that kind of brought us all together because we were all kind of going through things and trying to heal and
right,
whatnot.
right.
Um, but also, you know, around the corner, there was like a show bar for the, you know, for the girls or what have you. Um, so there I experienced sort of like an oasis, what to me felt like an oasis for the girls, you know,
Mm,
people in an environment that at least valued who we were. But my friend Gina Rosero, also who's Filipino, she's told me
mhm,
that the same thing that, you know, even though the culture is very accepting, legally speaking, she didn't
right.
have a lot of rights as far as like changing the, you know, the marker on her gender ID and things like that. And, you know,
Mhm.
if she never would have been able to do that, which she did when she came to the US, she would have never been in these music videos that we caught her in, you know, early in the days when they didn't know that a trans girl was in her music in their music
Right.
video. So talk to me about like so obviously, you know, with all because it also says that now it says in your in the book synopsis that your character is a legal assistant.
Mhm.
Do you also have a background in legal?
I mean, yes,
Yeah,
because
okay.
so
You mean you're like I mean, okay. Listen, because I was about to say, are you that type of person that's got like eight different sort of things that you could do very, very well?
I don't have a law degree, but I've been in the legal industry for a long time. It started off when I moved to New York to do musical theater. And another reason why I'm such a huge fan of yours, being the first
Oh,
trans leading actor
yes.
in a Broadway
Doing
show. My
Broadway,
God,
of
my God.
course.
I wish I could have seen that, but I mean, I did that in the early aughts, and that's what I did, and so yeah, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
Oh, just wait, what was
Oh,
that?
the legal thing.
Yes, just the
Yes.
just because I saw the, you know, that, you know, obviously the music, I can feel the music thing there. I can feel the, you know, sort of battle with identity, and then I see this legal assistant there, and I'm like, oh, that's a plot twist.
Yeah, that's because I didn't have to do tables. I didn't have to, I had a steady job and they called them a legal secretary back then, not an
Oh
executive
wow.
assistant, a
Uh
legal
huh.
secretary to attorneys at a major law firm on Wall Street. And whenever I would do a show, I would say, okay, I quit. And they'd be like, no, we love you. Just go and then come back. So I was very lucky
So you
to have.
do have these. So it comes from somewhere.
It does.
Because
It
you
does.
know, because they say write what you know. Do you feel like in this experience with the two books that you've been deep diving into, sort of how you see what you know about love, identity, in the world?
Absolutely. And I think that's the reason why I wrote in the first place. It was because when I was growing up, I sought out as much literature as I could about the queer experience, which was always white and
Mhm,
usually
mhm.
male.
Yes.
And but I was also looking for books about the Filipino experience, and there were books, but it was always literature. It was always about the colonialistic anti-colonialism, and it was
Of
always about
course.
the trauma of being an immigrant, and we needed those books and we still need those books, but I could not find a book that had my experience joined together. And I was lucky growing up that my coming out experience was relatively trauma free. And
Oh, that's
so
great. That's good to
yeah,
hear.
I mean, it's not common, I know. And so I wanted to have a book out there that said, okay, this experience exists. Like, you
Mhm.
can be queer, you can be a queer person of color, you can be a queer Filipino person, and you can have a happy ending, which is why I kind of wrote a romance, because that's what a romance is, right? It's defined by a happy ever after. So
Is it has there been romance in your life, in your personal life?
I am married. I've been happily married. Yes,
Yes.
I'm happily married. I've been together with Peter for 12, oh my God, he's going to kill me. 12 years.
After a while, you start to
Y
lose count.
you lose count, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, he is my happily ever after. In fact, that's what I wrote in my first book on the front page. It's
Oh,
"Thank you for being me
wow.
happily ever after." So,
That is
yeah.
great. Now, how do you feel, because you said that's your husband, you're
Mhm,
married? Yes.
mhm.
And so do you feel with what you've seen lately sort of in our political climate, do you feel like those rights are kind of ironclad?
No, not no, no. I am actually pretty afraid. When, there is hope now with Kamala,
Right,
obviously,
right.
but I was very afraid before that because chances were we were not going to have another Democrat in the White
Mhm.
House, and then to me, that's it. Like we were going
Mhm.
to be done for the next 4 years. We were going to see even more of our rights being stripped away, people being emboldened to write more and more legislature that puts us back in the closet. Take our. I mean, they are ready to take our rings off our fingers. You know,
Absolutely.
they are
Absolutely.
ready, given the
Yeah,
chance.
it's such an interesting, situation because I know that the Republicans and the right has had such a intense narrative around trans people.
Yeah.
I mean, so much that J.K. Rowling, I think, finally wrote a check the ass cannot cash. Uh, just in the sense of like, talking about the woman who was competing in boxing in the Olympics and,
Yeah.
claiming that she was not a woman and saying all these things and stoking all this anti-trans hate and now finding herself in a lawsuit and we ain't
Hmm.
heard her really been tweeting and posting lately, which has been such a gift to a lot of
Yes.
us. But with so much of that, even looking back at the DNC, I heard nothing as far as any mention of protecting trans Americans and citizens when the right is so focused on that, which I have no idea why they're so focused on that because that really is the least of our problems. But they
Hmm.
are so focused on that, and but to me, I feel like that is a bit indicative of sort of the hierarchy we've created within our own mafia, LGBTQ mafia, as they call us,
Hmm.
or the alphabet, whatever they want to call us. But so we want marriage equality, but and so many people within our communities kind of packed up when it was like marriage equality, peace out, we free,
Yeah, we're
y'all. We
done.
got we got and realizing that so many trans people are still struggling with employment, having access to health care, especially when we're talking about abortion rights and people are not talking about it intersectionally. That includes trans people.
Hmm.
It just comes to so many things. And so, how do you think, as we as a community, come together so that we can get us all across the finish line of equity and equality and not just some of us?
Well, I'll answer that from two perspectives. One, as a queer cisgender person, but also a person of color, that we have to, and I think we are doing an okay job. We are certainly doing a better job than it was at the beginning of like the Stonewall era, where it was gays, it was men against women, and
Hmm.
no lesbians and no drag queens. We're better, but we still need to make sure that we are combined, that we are connected as a community, that any anyone else's rights being lost means the rights lost for everyone. So we have to
Yeah.
stand up for each other. But I also, yeah.
I think that because you said that, I mean, you've probably seen, Pose. Um,
Yes.
and so when I think about, Pose, but I think about like early shows that I used to watch coming up, like Queer as Folk, or
Hmm.
even Noah's
Right.
Ark, or Will and Grace, the shows that we did have. Um, I think we have been inching our way slowly but surely towards a inclusive picture,
Yeah.
and we just haven't gotten there yet. And we still have people who can look around and not recognize that everybody on the boat is white, or
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the boat is male, or everybody on the boat is, straight or cisgender or whatever the case is. And so, the thing that I loved about Pose was being able to see, just like Sex in the City. Again, one of the shows I got hooked on, like a lot of
Right.
other people got hooked on, and you felt like you were getting this voyeuristic experience into the lives of these four completely different women, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But then you realize that they're not even that. Amongst them, there could still be more diversity, as we've seen in the ways that they have diversified, going forward.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that we still have to create these stories, and not just stories, but with our own environments that we have control over,
That's
continue
right.
to look around
Mm-hmm.
and think about who's not in the room.
Yes. Yeah, it is about visibility. I think part of what the right is tapping into is this, reality that most people in the United States were not aware of trans people.
Mhm.
They thought they didn't know them, that they'd never met one. I guarantee you, you probably had before, you just didn't know it, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
so it
But
is
also
about
there's a whole under economy that is pretending that they don't know that they exist, but
that's no, that's the other
they
part.
are the number one clients who are keeping the girls employed.
Floyd,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. So that is my responsibility as an artist. Our responsibility as artists is to continue that visibility. And that my in my first book, there is a character who is beloved over all the other characters, and they are the best friend of the main character, and their name is Ujima. They are a non-binary black trans character, and
Oh,
they
wow.
yeah, they're the best friend, and I made sure I talked to as many of my trans friends as I could. I had a sensitivity reader, make sure that they didn't devolve into a stereotype, because they are very funny, they're very
That's
sassy.
great. Right,
Um,
right.
but it is such a joy when people come back to me, and they're going to be in the second book, and they're going to be in the third book. They're going
Oh,
to be in all the books.
wow. That's so great.
Yeah, it could be when people tell me, I love that character. I wish I knew that person in real life. I knew these are people from, in the flyover states who have never met someone like that. And just putting that person in the book and having a reader fall in love with them, I feel like I'm helping just a little bit, because now that person's going to be
Absolutely.
like, I love this person. Can I meet this person in real life? Yes, you can. They exist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you never know, you might have created also a job and a role that was baked in there for a girl, when it times to come to cast the movie or the TV show. You know?
That's right.
Talk to me about, like, okay, so obviously you seem very, settled in yourself today,
Mhm.
but when did you know that you were queer?
Oh god. When I was, like, in 3rd
You
grade,
knew
yeah, I
back
knew,
then. Yes,
I
yes.
knew. When I had crushes on all the boys, when all the girls would sit around me at lunchtime and I was not with any of the other boys, yeah, I mean, I knew from
Wow.
right away. But the funny thing is, I thought in 5th grade that I was bisexual, because I
Mhm.
had crushes on boys and girls. Although my crushes on the girls were platonic, they were about
Yes, yes,
friendship. So
yes, yes.
I didn't know, but I knew that I don't know where I had the vocabulary. It's like, "Mom, am I bisexual?" It was like, "Where
Wow.
did you learn that?"
That's incredible. So
No, it wasn't.
when you look at the environment that these kids are coming up in now,
Mhm.
and you think about yourself knowing what you knew at such a young age, what does an affirming environment look like for young Dominic now, like in at home and at school? What does that even look for our country? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. My sister, she's a lesbian, and she has 2 twins. They're in 1st grade. They're a boy and a girl. They are on the spectrum, and they have, because of virtue of my sister's, various relationships, they have, like, I think 5 mother figures, and of course a myriad of father figures who are their uncles. And I think to me that's what I'm so proud of my sister for being able to raise them in that sort of open and loving environment. I wish I had that as a kid, and I don't blame my parents because they didn't know,
Right.
and they were
Right.
immigrants, and they weren't aware of these things. But if I could go back in time and place Dominic in that kind of environment where it's not just it is the exposure to all these different types of families, family
Mhm.
structures. Filipinos are very traditional in that way. It's very Catholic, so it's one man, one woman. So if I could have had something different, I think I would have been. But hey, I'm okay. I'm doing
But
okay. So
what about at school? Like, did you have like did you versus like back then till today? Like, I know that again, whether it's sports or whether it's
mhm.
maybe different clubs or whether it's just the environment of the school and whether you have a GSA or not. Like, did you come up in a time to have a gay straight alliance or when you were in school?
I mean, I think I came up right around the time, right before that started to become popular. So, because I'm 50 now, so it was a little bit
Come
before
on.
my time.
See,
Oh,
listen, this is when it pays very well to be
that's
listen, because
I'm telling
that
you.
skin don't crack.
Well, that's right.
Do they have a Filipino saying with the skin? No?
And they don't, but
No.
it is a
They
similar
should have
phenomenon.
one. Yes, exactly.
Wait until you get to 80 and then everything just falls
Then
apart. So,
everything
but
wrinkles.
we still
Okay.
got time.
Yes.
um, I didn't have that experience, but what I will say is this, and again, I was lucky. I grew up here in the Bay Area, is that it was starting to get about the time where, um, let me just say that when I came out, the head cheerleader wanted to be my best friend. So it was that sort of
Right.
like, oh, I have a gay best friend, and so
Uh-huh.
I immediately had this other support structure.
Wow.
That is not a common experience. So,
No.
I'm very lucky that I was supported in that way. I do know of other people who, when they came out, it was all of a sudden, oh, they became popular, but it's not common.
Wow, that is great.
Yeah.
So now, when it comes to creativity and writing, I mean, I'm sure that to finish 3 books that you have do you run into roadblock I mean, writing blocks?
Oh yeah.
What do they call it? Writer's block?
Writer's blocks.
How do you
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? Like, how do you get through what is do you have like a tip or something to share with folks when it comes to like taking a book and a creative idea and
Mhm.
being able to overcome whatever, writer's block or challenges you might have to get to the end?
Yeah. Well, I have it's two parts of one piece of advice, and they sound like they're totally opposite because they kind of are. But
Okay.
the first one is sit your ass in the chair every
Absolutely.
every day.
Absolutely.
Every day, make if it's half an hour, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, make it very regular. And if you are staying and sitting there and every day something's gonna happen. The other part of it is give yourself the permission to not have to produce every day,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
the best ideas bubble up, as you know, in the shower, on the treadmill. They'd say don't come. A lot of times they don't come when you're sitting in front of your laptop or
True,
your
very
whatever.
true.
So it's a combination of those. You got to do both. You have to show
Do
up.
you keep things nearby when those ideas start to percolate? Like, do you
I
have
tr-
voice memos or
I
notebooks laying around the house?
I have them in my head so that the next day when I
Oh,
am in the
wow.
chair, I will put them in. Because sometimes actually it is.
Listen, those that would get lost like my car keys get lost in the house. So if I when I have an idea pop in my head, I have
You
to
have
write it
to,
down.
right?
If I don't, it is
It's
lost
gone.
like a needle in a haystack. Good luck finding that again.
That does
Yeah.
happen when I get one in the middle. You know how you get up, at 3 o'clock in the
Yes.
morning to go
Yes.
pee? That's when
And you
some
have that
good ideas
inspiration.
come.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that I have to write down immediately. But other than that, what happens is they'll bubble up and then they'll percolate, they'll kind of like ferment or something, so the next
Mhm.
day they have
Mhm.
kind of grown organically. So that's when I work on it. But I know what you mean. Sometimes they'll just.
So so now in the let's say realm of spirituality. So you said that you grew up with Catholicism, Catholic.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
is that where you are still now? Were you able to hold on to your faith? Did you find something else that fit a little more?
So I have a music background and I still do sing. I sing professionally at a church. It is my church in
Mhm.
Oakland on
Mhm.
Lake Merritt. It is a Catholic church. It's very liberal. I think my view about spirituality is that I find the path that I need within the church that I'm at. That is to say,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, when they do the whole communion, the way that I rephrase it in my head is, this is the way that our community right here has chosen to commune with the greater power. So
Exactly.
when
Uh-huh.
we do communion, I in my head think this is how I'm connecting to the people out there in the Buddhist community and the Muslim community and everything. When they do their right, we are connected to each
Absolutely.
other. That's how I view it.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, because I've been able to visit here in Atlanta. I've been able to visit like churches that are very open.
Mhm.
Actually, Bishop, Reverend Bishop Allen, I think it is, over at Vision Cathedral is the name of the church. And I mean, they have trans women who are in their like seminary program. They have obviously the pastor's gay and he has his husband. It's very queer friendly throughout the whole church,
But.
and they're just accepting of everyone. And I practice Buddhism, and
Mhm.
identify as a Buddhist, but I was raised in the church. But one thing that I tell people is basically it's got to speak to you.
Right.
If you sitting there doing it just because to
Right.
check a box
Right.
and it don't really resonate with you, then you really wasting your time, because that time spent, um when it resonates, can actually do something for you, and you don't have to leave what you've been brought up in, especially if you're willing to challenge
Yes.
the environment, and that's one thing I think I learned growing up in Racine, Wisconsin, in a very small town. At some point in my life, I felt like I needed to flee for my safety,
Mhm.
but in hindsight, and just seeing how a lot of the people have grown and matured since I've left and been back and come back again to see family, is that they were waiting for me to be strong enough
Mm.
to be able to stand up from
Mm.
and respond
Yeah.
in a way that was not a way that I was also scared about myself, or I was also not valuing myself, or just adding that sort of fuel to that fire. Um i i think that I was going to say something very specific with it. Oh yes. So I think that a lot of religions have been created to control.
Mhm.
um And I think that one thing that frustrates me most about sometimes Christianity and Catholic spaces is sometimes the most problematic voices are the loudest. The ones with the T-shirts and the signs at Pride saying God
Yep.
hates, queer people and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, we know that like there's been this saying lately that like as loud as you were wrong should
Mhm.
be as loud as the apology is.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I think that if these systems themselves are not going to create, sort of reparations and spiritual reparations. I think it is up to the folks like yourself who are like standing firm
Yeah,
in the places where they worship it, and to challenge the
that's right.
notions that people think, and to say that I am worthy to be in this space just as much as you are.
Yeah, I mean, my mom is about as Catholic as you can get, and she's in every church group, and all her friends are from church. And one of the biggest church groups that she's in has an email list, and one of the members was like, "Okay, we're gonna get together a group to demonstrate against Pride, the Pride celebration."
Wow.
And my mom wrote back this scathing letter about how her children are gay and how unchristian it is of them to be
Wow.
hating on people like her kids who are contributing to society, who have families, and she's 70, she's 74 or whatever,
That's
and she
incredible.
was and that to me is Christianity. Is standing
Absolutely.
up for the oppressed, is standing up for the marginalized.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And that's also what sort of growth looks like too, because I'm sure that she
Yeah,
wasn't, again, always having
right.
that such a strong stance as we said
No,
before.
she did not.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with this podcast, No Opportunity Wasted, what would you say out of all the things that in finding your husband, finding love, and getting, you know, a great book deal where you're now about to be on book three, and just living a part, your part of your dream, but also, the thing that we don't know when we look at Instagram and we see
Mhm.
the highlights and the pictures. A lot of times people don't understand the challenges that come along with that. Um, what would you say? For all the opportunities that you have been presented, what has helped you most to sort of overcome those opportunities and see things through?
Yeah, I love what you said about what we see on social media is not the real picture. It's that is the best of us, the best of our days, the happiest
Absolutely.
moments. And I think that is important to remember because I have a problem with depression. I have a problem with anxiety. I have a problem with anger. That's never going to show up in my Instagram feed, you know.
Absolutely. Right.
I mean, I might say something here or there on like threads or whatever, just,
Hmm,
not having a
hmm.
good day or whatever. But I think that has been the thing.
Because everybody doesn't realize how many of us actually are struggling with those
Struggling.
same things because
Yes,
we're not
that
really showing that.
well, we're not sure exactly. And besides my family and my husband and my friends who support me through the bad times,
That's
it
good.
is that
Yes.
it is that recognition that we are all going through, well, not all the same stuff, but we
No.
are
Hmm.
all, you know, susceptible, and we are all vulnerable to those types of, especially on social media, where we are
Absolutely.
always having to compare ourselves to other people. So it is that coming back to zero where you go, okay, at the base level, we are all going through it. I just turned 50. All my friends on my Facebook page would turn 50. We're all going through that same feeling of mortality.
Absolutely.
Like, how the hell are we half a century old? And it is that connection to other people,
Absolutely.
realizing that we're all going through it.
Well, one thing that I'm appreciative for when we are going through it is, stories like this, like Karaoke Queen, that can kind of break you into a space where obviously it's not a story devoid of challenges, of course, because who wants to read a story with no challenges?
Right.
But it is a story that is optimistic about our experience and experiencing love, and,
Yeah.
especially with the beautiful karaoke score involved in there as well. Are there mentions of certain songs in here that you that
there
you kinda brought
are.
up?
There's songs in there, and I just was talking to my audio producer about having to score some of the opening and the closing. Oh, by the way,
Oh,
I can
wow.
make an announcement. Can I make a little
Yes, of
announcement on it?
course, please
Okay,
do.
so I have the audiobook is coming out, And the
Yes.
audiobook narrator for Karaoke Queen is Manila Luzon from RuPaul's Drag Race.
Get out
So
of
it is her
here. I
first
love
audiobook.
that. I
She kick
love that.
yeah, because she's a Filipino drag queen. So who
Absolutely. It's going to be perfection.
I heard she is I haven't heard it yet, but I heard she
And
was
audiobooks are
amazing.
like my like favorite thing in the world. This is how I have ADHD, so like it's
Right, right.
definitely one of the things that helps with me. And so, I'm definitely going to get that audiobook cuz I
Oh,
love and
please.
Manila Luzon, like I know Manila like heart of gold.
Oh,
Heart of gold, professional,
ru
just great about her craft, but also
mhm.
just does not have shady energy, but also has appropriately shady energy, because all of us girls have to have a little bit
A
that,
little bit.
to reserve a little bit for that. So that, oh my goodness, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Super
quite
excited.
amazing.
Yeah.
So great. So where can folks find you, follow you, and get your books?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, and I'm at J Dominic Lim on Instagram, and you can find me on dominiclim.com and
Yes, come on,
order my book
website.
there. Super easy. So yeah,
Yes. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing this space with me, sharing your story with me. I know this is going to inspire somebody out there. I know just even this story, because I got to be honest. Um, I'm one of those people that was kind of bah humbug when it comes to romance stories. I
I
just I would watch some. What is? Oh, now they're gonna fall in love.
I'm the
Like.
same. I'm the same.
But, now that I guess I got a little bit of something in my life now, it's
Okay.
because listen, it's I think that, I think what it is too sometimes is what I love also what I hear about these stories too is about when you're dealing with identity, and trying to
Hmm.
find your space, whether that's in a spectrum of gender or identity, sexual orientation, whatever that is, when it comes to falling in love or finding that happily ever after, it must start somewhere, or it must have a stop somewhere where that starts with you, where you're more confident in who you are and what you're
I love
presenting
it.
to the other person that you have. I haven't
Mm.
even read it yet, and I
Oh
know
my
that,
god!
I know what's going on in here when we through our conversation. So I cannot wait. I'm definitely going to be getting this audiobook.
Get that audiobook.
Everybody, make sure you so the name of the first book again is.
Is all the right notes.
Oh, I
All the right
love the
notes.
name of
Hmm.
that. All the right
Yeah,
notes and
yeah.
Karaoke Queen. And do we know the name of the third book yet, or no? We're still
Not
working
yet.
on it.
I'm working
Okay.
on I'm working on it.
I'm
Yeah.
going to get my assistant. I'm be like, can you get the latest Karaoke Queen series book? They're like, sure. I'll go right down to the store and get it. Have
Right.
you fallen down and bumped your little head? I'm talking about the unprinted
The
manuscripts. You
unprinted
you can
manuscript.
do everything, right? This is great. Thank you so much, Dominic.